So this time around, we want to actually send the appropriate header from our front end to our back end so that we can access the protected routes. And if you recall, the one route we have protected is the one that happens when I submit this form. So right now I'm logged in, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, if I try to submit this right now, open the console, that route is protected, the one that happens when I try to save this. So I'll put, say, an X after the text here, okay? And try to save this. I actually get an error, invalid auth header, and that's sent back by our back end. And then after I click OK, we should get the same error up here. So we'll get rid of that alert. We don't need that anymore. But what we want is to send the appropriate web token, which we can see right here. We have it at this level of our application. And of course, this is at app.js, that level. But we don't have the token at this component. So we're going to have to, first of all, push the information containing that token to the add edit movie component, and then add the necessary header. And fortunately, that's pretty straightforward. So let's go to our code. And the first thing we'll have to do is push the JWT to the edit movie component. And that takes place right here on line 98. So we have to modify this. So instead of going component equals and just edit movie, we need to pass the props, because we can pass JWT as a property. So we'll add props here and then push it using the arrow function and open our parentheses. And we'll make edit movie a component this way and include all of the properties that exist like this, ... props. And then add another property, JWT equals this.state.jwt, which is where that's currently stored. And close that tag, so we don't need this anymore. And finally, close this and close the overall tag. Okay, so that will actually push it to the edit movie component. We now have access to JWT as a property in our edit movie component. So let's go to our edit movie component. And down here, let's just make sure we actually got that. So in my component did mount, I'll actually just add this. Console.log JWT in edit movie component did mount. And I'll put this.props.jwt just to make sure we actually have it. Okay, so let's go back and clear our console, and we'll go to the home page, and we'll go back to we'll log in so we can see the list of movies. me@here.com, password, and log in. And we'll go to The Princess Bride and watch our console. And there it is. We have our token in our component did mount. Perfect. So let's go back to our code. Now we need to add the necessary header on the part where we submit the form. Right here, handle submit. So what I'll do is, after I declare my data and payload constants, I'll create another one called const myHeaders. I can call it whatever I want, but myHeaders works. And that will be equal to new headers, straight from the standard JavaScript. And I will append two headers to this, myHeaders.append. And the first one will be our content type, which we now allow in our CORS middleware. So the key is content-type with a capital C and a capital T. And the value is application JSON. Now it works without that, but this is good practice. So I'm going to add that. Now I'll duplicate that line and add the second one as being authorization. And this is the one that will hold our token. Authorization. And make sure you spell it right, or this isn't going to work. And this doesn't consist of just one thing. Remember, we're splitting the content of this on a space. So I'm going to add, first of all, what we expect to see there, bearer, and then a space. And then I will append to that plus this.props.jwt. Okay, so now I have my headers variable, which is called myHeaders. And down here in request options, we're going to get rid of this commented out line, which I don't know if you actually saw me add, but it's gone now. And we'll append our headers by saying headers my headers. Okay, so that actually includes the necessary information from our JSON Web Token in the post to the edit movie route. Okay, so we should be able now to actually edit this movie. So let's go back, and I'll reload everything to make sure it's current. Okay, and then I'll have to log in, so I'll go back to my login screen, and I will log in as a valid user, me@here.com, password. I think I mistyped that. Password. I'll clear the console, I'll log in, and now I'll go to the Shawshank Redemption, and now I'll add one word after this. One word. There. It's actually two words, but you get the idea. So this should work if we've done everything correctly. And we have an error. Authorization is spelled wrong. After I told you to spell it right, I went and spelled it wrong myself. So let's go fix that. Authorization. That looks better. Okay. So it's reloaded it. I'm still logged in. I'll clear the console, and I should be able to add one word again. One word. Save. And it appears to have worked. So if we go back and look at the Shawshank Redemption, there it is. And I should be able to remove this and save it, and it's gone. Perfect. So now we have a means of actually pushing our JWT to the components that need it as a property. And we have a means of actually successfully authenticating for all of the protected routes on our back end. And we're not done yet. So you can see that if I, for example, look at the Shawshank Redemption, I'm logged in right now, but if I copy this URL and then log out and then paste it back in, I can still see that screen. And I shouldn't ever see this form if I'm not logged in. So clearly we need to make some kind of redirect on our front end to check to see if the variable or the value JWT exists in the state, and if it doesn't, and we can do this all right in the app.js component, then redirect them somewhere else, perhaps to the login screen. That would seem appropriate. And we'll take care of that in the next lecture.